What's going on, AVS pros? My name is Matthew Webb. I'm part of the hyperscaler team here at VMware. And today I was going to do just a short video over HCX firewall rules and firewall rules in general for AVS. I've had a couple customer conversations about this topic. And while there's plenty of resources online, sometimes context can make a big difference in helping you get those firewall rules inputted to your firewall team. So the first thing we're going to jump into is sort of three resources where you can find information on firewall rules. So the first is going to be ports.vmware.com because the new tool that will probably be introduced into your environment is going to be HCX. So if I go to ports.vmware.com, I can go down to HCX, and then I'll get every port I would potentially need for HCX. So this is sort of like the go-to resource for all of the ports that you'll need. And the reason why I share this first is, the product changes and it will continue to change. For example, the most common one that we're going to talk about when we get into sort of the diagram version is port 4500, UDP 4500 to the destination environment. That's actually changed if you have application path resiliency, where it's actually a range of 4,500 to, let's actually look it up. If I put in 4,500, you can see it's actually now 4,500 to 4,628. It used to be just 4,500, but when it does application path resiliency, it's actually making multiple tunnels, and those are the ports that it uses. So the reason why I'm bringing up this first is make sure that you're checking ports.vmware.com because things can change. But when it comes to HCX, really understanding the architecture is going to be key, and understanding where your firewalls are and where they aren't. Okay, so it's obviously very intimidating when you look at the ports.vmware.com. You're like, this is a lot of firewall rules. But the reality is just where your firewalls are and where they are not. So for probably, I'd say, 70% of my customers, that's just kind of like, going off of a whim here. Customers just need to focus on ports 443, and I'll kind of like annotate these as we go. 443 and UDP 4500 for the appliances. This includes the service mesh appliances and the HCX appliance. Another key thing to note is that the HCX manager is for AVS is always going to be in AVS, and the connector is what you deploy on-prem. There can be some variants if you've got other hyperscaler products, and maybe you've got VCF with HCX of whether it is a manager or connector. But in general, if you're just starting out with HCX and you got AVS, that is the topology. So when you see manager referred, that's on the cloud side. If you see the connector, that's the on-prem side. So, as a customer, if you just are worried about the firewall around the perimeter, all you need to focus on is ports 443 and 4500 for HCX, as well as these outbound connections from on-prem to the internet to these URLs, and that's for license key validation and updates. So really, the takeaway, if you just have a firewall around the perimeter, these are the firewall rules that you need to focus on. Where complexity starts to rise is if you have a firewall within your infrastructure that's microsegmenting your environment in between vSphere resources. And that's where everything in the green lines come in on this diagram. So basically everything underneath here needs to be considered when you have a firewall that is literally sitting between vCenter and ESXi hosts and HCX. That is where you're going to have a lot of firewall rules that you need to input to ensure that you have HCX work properly. Things like communication between bulk migrations, which uses usually by default the management interface, because that's where what vSphere replication will use. So again, could be very simple if you just have a perimeter firewall, could be more robust if you have an internal firewall rule, or internal firewall, I should say. Okay, so that's for HCX. The last thing I wanted to leave in, while this is mostly around HCX, it's not necessarily around other items. I did just want to reemphasize, if you're looking at firewalls in general, not just HCX, like you want to make sure that you're getting firewall rules for everything. I think a good, that's going to be something you're going to have to understand your environment, kind of comb through. But I think a good starting place to start thinking about, where I need firewall rules between AVS and my on-prem infrastructure can start at this network planning checklist. So this goes through and explains everything around how that /22 is subdivided into separate networks for the AVS SDDC, or the software defined data center. But also things that you just might not have thought of, like simple things like your DNS server, connections that may be used, your on-premise networks to on-premise network firewall rules that you may, or I'm sorry, on-premise networks to AVS new networks that may be used. Access to vCenter, access to all these other items that may come with migrating your workloads to AVS. So sort of two aspects. The HCX part of it is fairly simple if you can just understand where your firewalls are and are not. And then you have to obviously think about all the other things that come along with migrating a data center and what may communicate from on-prem into AVS. So that's just kind of the quick overview. Hopefully this adds some context into how to prepare the prereqs of adding firewall rules to adopting AVS. If you've got any comments, or maybe you found some surprising firewall rules that you ran into along your journey to AVS, pop it in a comment below. And we're always looking for new ideas for videos, so feel free to comment in there as well. Appreciate the time, everyone. Have a great day.